Hello, gorgeous women of the Break the Cycle Facebook group. Welcome to the day 7, the last and final day of this series. And today we're going to be talking about the test relationship, my most recent relationship. This one, I'm a little nervous to talk about, to be honest. So if you're here with me, go ahead and drop a heart, drop a like. Let me know that you're here. And if you're watching the replay, go ahead and hashtag replay. So tomorrow at, let me take a look. I think it's tomorrow at 1:30, I'm going to do a shop with me event where you can come live with me. I'll share with you all the ways that you can work with me and you can see what works best for you. And then I'm considering doing another relationship series where I talk about the relationships that I was in with the nice guys. So if you want me to do that, I want to make sure that, everyone's on board with that and that it would be helpful for you. If I did another relationship series, only it's where I was the toxic one, and what I learned from that, what my experiences were. So just say yes in the comments if you want me to do that. So today, we're talking about the test, my most recent relationship. And so this relationship was incredibly healing for me. Incredibly healing, even though it ended very painfully. I feel like I completed karmic cycles. I feel like I healed so many wounds. And this was like the biggest ego death of my entire fucking life. When this relationship ended, it was very public, and clearly I was a relationship coach at the time. And so it was like really hard for me to cope with that because I felt like an idiot. I felt like a failure. I questioned everything. And the fact that I was able to like overcome that and I'm back better, stronger, more successful than ever. I feel better. So this relationship had to happen. So this was my test relationship. And so I'm going to share with you, the dynamic, how things went, how it ended, and the lessons that I learned from this. And so this was the first relationship, like I was fully immersed in the self-development industry when him and I met, like very newly. And so me being the cute little naive girl that I am getting into this industry, I just thought that anyone in self-development, like I put them on a pedestal, right? And so I thought that they were just all in integrity, right? And so I had even been in a few coaching containers run by men, and this is also with women too, but where they were highly manipulative, and I just blindly followed whatever they said and whatever they told me to do because I had assumed that they were in integrity and I trusted them, and I got screwed out of thousands of dollars, by these coaches that, had manipulated me. And so, in this relationship, I feel like I put him on a pedestal, because he was a coach and he had been in the self-development industry for longer than I had been. And him and I taught some of the same stuff. And, we read all the same books and we did a lot of the same healing modalities. And so when you meet somebody in the self-development industry as somebody who, practices what they preach, you think you hit the fucking jackpot. And so how we met was I was a guest on his podcast, and it was like immediately we had a really great connection, and we formed a friendship. And looking back, I see places where I doubted myself, or I doubted my intuition. So when we met, he told me that he was getting separated and that it had been a long time coming, that, you know, they had been unhappy for a long time. They did like a conscious uncoupling and like all of this stuff. And so he started flirting with me. And so after, like, you know, he had flirted with me a bit, I was like, I want nothing to do with you until you're like separated, divorced, whatever. And so, you know, I believed that he was truthful about that. And so, you know, we hadn't talked for a while. He reached back out to me and was like, I'm fully separated, like, you know, whatever, everything's over. And I was like, well, I think you need some time to heal before we get involved with anything. And he was like, no, like I said, like, this has been a long time coming. Like, I've been preparing myself. She's been preparing herself. Like, you know, this is just, yeah, I've already done all that healing work. So again, like me being, you know, the cute little naive girl and newly in the self-development industry, I was like, okay. So we start talking and we start dating, and he moves from Florida to Ohio to be with me. And so like with everything that happened, like it seemed like what he said was true, because how can you date somebody for 2 months and then move a whole nother place if everything you're saying isn't true, right? So I remember when he first came to visit me, and again, like it just felt so perfect. It felt so right. However, I remember like we were laying in bed together and my intuition was just like, run. Like that was literally the thing. And and I had also blocked him before this as well. And then when he told me, you know, like everything was a done deal, I unblocked him. So, so we're dating. He moves to Ohio. We are happily in this relationship. He's wonderful. And I mean, to be honest, our relationship was wonderful. He was so kind and loving and attentive, and you know, he was so supportive, and he was consistent in our communication always. He never said a mean, bad, rude word to me ever. He never raised his voice at me. We communicated wonderfully, and you know, ultimately, like we didn't really disagree on much either. You know, it's like he was my best friend. He would always like write me little notes and like leave them on my notebook or like put them on my mirror. And he was just such a loving person in the beginning. And even at the end, you know, he still did all those things. That was a consistent thing for the entire time that we were together. And so ultimately, like, we were happy. And, you know, this was the first relationship that I had had since I overcame codependency and love addiction. And I was being treated the way that I had always wanted to be treated. But there was like a couple of things. So remember how I had mentioned in the other videos, how one of my standards was I will never be kept a secret. So because of his divorce and us getting together, he kept me a secret, essentially. Like his family knew about me, but see, like I didn't know all the extra information, right? Because his family wasn't around. And so it's like, if his family was in town, then I'd be like, why aren't we going to see your family? Or why aren't we, whatever, right? And so his friends knew about me, but it was like, the extent of how close we were and how serious we were in our relationship, he wasn't honest with his family about that. And we found that out, you know, far later in the relationship. And so, you know, he's really close with my family. He's close with my daughter. We're doing a lot of things together. It's like, you know, dream come true. And I remember about like a few months into us dating, one thing that really bothered me that he did was he would like do something and then tell me about it after. So like we had planned to go do an ayahuasca ceremony together in Costa Rica. And then this was a few months into his dating, and then he books his ayahuasca trip and then like doesn't tell me about it until after. And he's like, hey, I booked this ayahuasca trip for myself and I'm leaving, and can you watch my pets? And can you do this? And I was just like, what the fuck? You know, like that's something that we were supposed to do together. And I was really upset about that. And I shared with him that I was really upset about that. And he told me, you know, he apologized. He was like, I'm sorry. I know that that hurts your feelings. I won't do that again. And he had told me like in his marriage, you know, he would talk to me about what it was like in his marriage. And the way that he portrayed it was like, and he never spoke a bad word about his ex either, because that's also a red flag, is, you know, demonizing your ex. He never did that. He did say she was a wonderful person, but he didn't feel like he could be himself. And so they had very different views in life. And COVID brought a lot of that stuff out, right? So they were together, obviously, during COVID. And so they just started to realize their differences, and he just never felt like he could be himself or, you know, like do something without getting yelled at. And so, so he said like, that's why he felt like he had to do it that way. And so I told him, I was like, hey, that's not cool. Let's not do that. And he didn't do it. And like, we handled that problem and everything was fine. And then it gets to be, you know, more months into our relationship, and he tells me that his parents don't know the extent of us being together, and you know, he wants to tell them. And I'm like, well, I already thought that they did. And so then he goes and visits his parents and tells me that he tells them that that we're together. And so I'm like, well, how did it go with your parents? And he was like, great, I'll tell you when I get home. So I'm like, okay, cool, he did it. So then he gets home and he's like, I have something to tell you. I didn't tell my parents. And so I'm fucking furious. And I'm like, why would you lie to me? Like, don't lie to me. I don't appreciate that. Like, that is, you know, a really big deal for me. One of my core values is honesty and integrity. And if you're not that person, then we shouldn't be together. And so again, he's like, I'm sorry, I'm going to tell them. And he ended up telling them on the phone like a couple days later. So it's like he would do the thing that was upsetting to me and then apologize for it. And also, you know, one of the big dynamics here, not only being kept a secret, but also lying. So lying for me, like growing up constantly being lied to and manipulated, it doesn't seem outrageous. At the time when him and I were together, it didn't seem outrageous. Like, yes, I was upset, but it didn't seem outrageous because that was familiar to me. So I'm sure that you guys can all resonate with that. Like when you've been in relationships, it's like the things that would outrage other people don't outrage you. And it's because it's familiar to you. And so again, he apologizes, he fixes it, he does the thing, and everything's good. The next thing he lies about, so it's like everything in between these times is perfect. Like everything feels good, we're happy, we're communicating. You know, again, it's like we're having consistent communication. He'd call me multiple times per day, every night. You know, he'd call me before bed and, you know, we'd talk about our day and then do our 3 gratitudes, what we're grateful for. And then every Sunday we did like a State of the Union where we would talk about our relationship and was there anything unsaid? Was there anything that we need to talk about? What went well this week with us? What didn't go so well? So like we did these really, emotionally intelligent, emotionally mature check-ins, and it felt like we were just doing all of the right things, right? And here and there my anxiety would be there. And again, like this was the first relationship I had since going through the depth of my healing journey, right? And so the next thing that he lies about is we had talked about moving to Florida together. Like I had always wanted to live in Florida, right? So always, like ever since I can remember, I had been planning to move to Florida previous years. It just never quite worked out. And so we had talked about us moving to Florida, in the summer. And so, something really feels off to me in our communication. And I'm like, something feels weird. Something doesn't feel right. And so I'm asking him, and like my intuition, I am psychic. I can feel things. I just know things before they happen. I can read people really well. It's just like one of my energetic gifts, right? I use that in my Reiki practices all the time. And so I'm like, I feel like he's trying to move to Florida before we had planned. So I ask him, like, is something going on? And he says, no, everything's fine. And then I'm like, I feel like you're planning to move to Florida before we had agreed to. And he was like, yeah, you're right. Like I've been looking at places and I was scared to tell you. And I'm just like, oh my God, like, why wouldn't you just tell me? Like, it's just not fair that you're keeping this from me and, all the things. And so we work through that together and, apologizes, tells me, he realizes like I'm a safe person that he can tell things to and all of those things. Right. So I'm understanding and whatever, like I should have ended the relationship before that when he lied the second time. Like that is such a big thing for me. Like honesty and integrity are huge to me. I don't lie. I do what I say I'm going to do. I'm very much in integrity with, what I teach and who I am. And so, compared to my other relationships though, this one seemed magical and amazing. And so, compared to what I had been through before, somebody lying to me about these things and then apologizing and then fixing it seemed okay at the time. But again, like, we've got that oxytocin going and we want to overlook these things. And also my daughter was involved. And so, us both being in the self-development industry, I'm like, it seems right. And so time moves forward, I end up meeting his parents and his family and things are great. And, he ends up moving to Florida before I do because, he's like, I want to scope things out. I want to make sure that, we find the right place and whatever. So he moves to Florida a couple of months before I do. We've talked about marriage at this point. We've talked about if we want kids. And also a thing too, was he really wanted kids of his own and I didn't. I felt like something was wrong with me that I didn't want more kids. I think he was subconsciously putting pressure on me, like not intentionally, but I just felt, I was like, well, maybe it's just my problem that I don't want more kids because of the trauma that I've been through. And so, I started working through that trauma and I was like, well, maybe it's just, like I'm scared to do it. And so, like we had talked about that and I was like, maybe I do. And so let me think. So he moves to Florida and like we're seeing each other like every other week. Right. So, we're still consistent with being with each other. We're FaceTiming multiple times per day. Things are good. Again, has never said a mean, rude, bad word to me ever. At this point, it was just like him lying to protect me and then telling me the truth afterwards. And so again, like in the grand scheme of things, compared to what I had been through, it really didn't seem all that crazy. Right. And so we get to a point where it's time for me to move to Florida. Like our relationship is like at its peak at this point. We're so happy. Things are going so well. We really, my family likes him, except for my parents. My parents never liked him. And they didn't tell me this until we broke up, actually. And to be honest, like I don't take into account how my parents feel about my stuff in my relationships because of just the type of relationship that I have with them. But so he flies here to help me pack up my home to move. He drives the truck from Cleveland to Florida, like the whole time. My daughter, I fly back to get her at a later point. So it was like, we're going to go here. We're going to pack up the house. We're going to get the house all settled. And then I'll come back and get my daughter. And at this point, he's like telling my daughter, like he wants to be her dad and that we're a family. And, like she's never had a father figure before. And so, she's happy. She likes him. Things are going well. On the drive from Cleveland to Florida, like we're having the best time together. And I get to Florida, get settled in, and I just like remember being okay. So this is a really big deal. What happened was I told him that I had to reopen my court case with my daughter's paternal grandparents if I wanted to move. I'm really good at handling my emotions. I'm throughout our entire relationship, there really wasn't a lot of issues that I had. Like I was just happy. My life was going really well. Like really nothing extensive was ever wrong. So he didn't have to deal with anything really, it was like, things were just good. And when I did have big emotions or whatever, he sat with me. But reopening that court case, I told him he has to be sure about him and I, because if I move, I'm going to have to reopen this court case. They are ruthless. They are horrible. And, it's going to cost me a lot of money to reopen this court case. It's going to piss them off and they're going to, try to, manipulate and do the same things they did last time, which was just the most traumatic thing that I've ever been through, was going through court with that family, because it happened 3 times. And so I was like, we have to be so sure about this. And he told me, he was like, I love you and I want to be with you and I want us to be a family in Florida. And so I go through reopening my court case, all of the things, and like dealing with that. I would not wish on my worst enemy. Like I could cry about it right now. It was so stressful because they're a very rich family. They will lie, they will manipulate, they will do anything to fuck with you if you're on their bad side. And so I was just so stressed out. I mean, dealing with them, having to like do mediation with them, having to see them and, go through this and them arguing with what I think's right. And, just going at it through lawyers and all that stuff. I mean, it costs a lot of money. And so I was just like, just every time something new would come up with the case, like it was just really stressful for me. And so when we got to Florida, not only was I dealing with that, I was dealing with getting settled in a new place. I got, my daughter, I went and got my daughter and came back, and it was during the summer, and she was excited at first to move to Florida. But, but then, things quickly changed with her and she was miserable and she would cry and scream like every day. That she wanted to go home and that she hated me and that I was the worst mom in the world. And so, I am just at my breaking point. Like I was struggling so deeply. And, before that, like when we had just moved, like for the first, I don't know, 2 weeks that we were there, it was amazing, like my daughter's happy, I'm happy, he's happy, like we're having the best time together, but then reality sets in and my daughter's miserable. I'm, miserable because of this court case and because she's not happy. She doesn't like any of the camps that I put her in. It's like every night she is just screaming at me. And I no longer have help with my daughter from, my family because my whole family's here. And it just, I couldn't believe how quickly things turned. And so I'm going through all of this, and him being the person he is, he always feels like he has to fix everything and everything's pressure on him to figure it out. And, that was never me putting that pressure on him, but it was himself. And so, I'm here, I'm in Florida, like, okay, I'm making new friends. I went out and started making new friends. I started getting, acquainted with the community and like doing Reiki events in the community and all of this stuff to like, just try to transition my life here. Right. And so he just starts pulling like all the way back. And I'm asking him, I'm like, I feel like something's wrong. Like, is everything okay? And he's like gaslighting me. And he's like, everything's fine. All the while, things are not fine. They're not fine. He's pulling back. He's super stressed out. He feels overwhelmed. He's not telling me any of this. And it's just like, I feel so shut off and closed down. And I don't know what to do. Like my nervous system was like fried from everything. I'm running my business. I'm trying to be okay. I'm, trying to be okay with my daughter. My boyfriend's pulling away and I'm just like, and I'm going through this court case and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what is happening? And so like, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was just so stressed. So this goes on for a couple of months. And again, like he's telling me nothing's wrong, everything's okay and whatever. And so again, it's like, I don't trust my intuition that something's wrong. I think that, it's just my PTSD being triggered. And that I just, need to go do some more breath work, some journaling, some meditation, go have fun. So I did. And I managed it a lot better. And it was, I was starting to turn a corner. And so I start to turn a corner and I'm just starting to feel better. And, everything that I feel like he's doing, like pulling away and like he's doing all the same things. Like he's very present with me and my daughter. We're still hanging out consistently. He's still talking to me consistently, but it was his energy that was different. And so that's why like the two things just didn't make sense to me. I was like, it has to be me. I have to be the problem because he's doing everything that he was doing before, even like he's texting me and calling me the same ways he was before, all of the things. And so I thought that it was me. And then, another month goes by and he gets a babysitter. And I think, he's taking me out on a date. He gets a babysitter and has me come to his house and he like sits me down and he's like, I have to tell you that I made out with another woman when I went to a bachelor party, which was in, 2 months before, or a month before that. And so, like, he was going to his brother's bachelor party, and it was so crazy. Like, when he went to that bachelor party, I like called my friend and I was like, I feel like he cheated on me. And I was like, do you ever feel that way? And my friend was like, I used to feel that way, but she had been with her partner for like 6 years at this point. And so she's like, I used to feel that way. And like, it would cross my mind and whatever. And so I'm like, okay. I go to pick him up from the airport the next day. Immediately when he gets in the car, I'm like, I know something's up. And so I'm like, did you cheat on me? Did you do anything that you wouldn't do in front of me with another woman? And he says no. So that happened first. And then, he tells me this a month later. And I am just in shock. And I'm like, is that the only thing? And he says no. And so then he tells me that at his brother's wedding, which was a few weeks after he went to the bachelor party. And he was like, at my brother's wedding, a girl spent the night in my room and we did everything but have sex. And so I'm just like, what the fuck? I literally was like so in shock. And because I never would have thought in a million years he would do this. Never. And so I was just in complete shock. If my daughter wasn't involved, I would have walked out of the house and never talked to him ever again, ever. And so he told me, he was like, I'm so sorry. I love you. Like, I just felt so much pressure. And like, we both read this book. I can't remember what it's called, but it talks about an upper limit problem. And an upper limit problem is when you self-sabotage, when you start getting to the next level of something. And so I get it. It's not okay, but I understand, you know what I mean? Like, it talked about, like, this book that we both read talks about like Bill Clinton, how he, cheated on his wife with Monica Lewinsky or whatever her name was. And he was talking about the upper limit problem. And so, I understand what he's talking about, but again, it doesn't make it okay. And so I'm in shock. I don't know what to do. Like, I'm in Florida. I just moved there a couple of months ago. Like, I was only in Florida for 2 months before this happened. And so, I had opened my court case. I had gone through all of the things, and he tells me, like, I love you and I want us to go to counseling and I want to fix this. And so I think, I was just like, I was so in shock, and I was just like, okay, like, let's go to counseling and let's see if we can figure it out. We go to counseling for about a month, and in my head, I'm like, my whole life is like crashing before my eyes. You know what I mean? I'm like, my reputation, the humiliation of everything that's happening, like my daughter, like everything. It just was like, everything was so perfect, like 2 months prior, where, like, couldn't have been better for the both of us. And then for this to happen. And so in my mind, I'm just like, I'm just frozen. I don't know what to do. So we go to therapy and we try to work this out. And like, he's saying and doing all the right things is the thing. Like, he's showing up 100%. Like, he is, so open and apologetic, and is like wanting to, like, atone and figure it out. Right. However, his energy was just so often for him. So this is very common for men, is like shame. Men really struggle with shame. And so he felt so ashamed about, what he had done. And he just knew that I just viewed him so totally differently. So like his emotions were shut down, but he was still showing up and doing the things and being involved. And so it was just so uncomfortable for me. I remember like the end of our relationship, I was just like, I don't even like this person. Like, I don't like him. I'm out of love with him. I don't like him. I don't like the person that he is. And like, when you see a side of a person, like you can either deal with it and be like, you know what, like I could deal with this for the rest of my life. Just the way that he was in that way. Like, again, he was never mean, rude, whatever to me, but just his energy being so shut down. And like, the thing was, I was like, what a small, like I have a lot of emotional resilience, right? Like I've been through so many things and he has lived a very cushy life. And so I can deal with just about anything. He had no staying power, which is what I realized. I'm like, he's lived a very easy life. And the moment things got hard between him and I, he went and did something stupid. And I was like, if I married this person, do you know how many hard days we would have, hard weeks, hard months? And also, look at what he did in his marriage. So I remember we went to this like zoo event, and just everything he did pissed me off. And like, I don't get like that. And just like everything that he said, everything he did. And I was just like, I don't like this person. I don't want to be around this person anymore. And so the next day I drove to his house and I ended the relationship. And we agreed that he would still be in contact with my daughter because she was like, he was like a dad to her. And like, I was so terrified of telling my daughter because I didn't want her to hate me. I was like, she's always wanted a father figure, and they were really close. And I didn't want her to hate me. And so I was really terrified about telling her. And so he agreed that he would stay involved. And I also said that I was moving back to Ohio. And so he said that he would stay involved and, do the right thing. And so I tell my daughter that we're moving back home to Ohio, and she's so happy. She fucking hated Florida, like never wanted to be there. And so, for, a month, we're there split up. We're pretending like we're still in a relationship for my daughter's sake. And I know that wasn't the right thing to do, but it was, with everything else going on, that was the best thing that I could do. That was the best that I knew how to do at that time. And so what happens is I fly my daughter home. She stays with my parents for 2 weeks. And I fly back to Florida so that I can pack up the house, do all the things. And, him and I, like, we're still friendly at this point. And I think I was overly friendly with him so that he would still be close to my daughter. Like, it was not coming from a place of, I want to be friendly with you because I forgive you. It was coming from a place of, I'm scared that if I act a certain way, he's not going to follow through with his promise. And so, like, we're not talking a ton, but, we're friendly. And Then my last day in Florida comes around, and we decide that we want to just like, spend a couple hours together before I leave. And so he tells, we hang out, and like, again, like I'm in so much shock. Like, I think that I had to, like, those moms that like pick up the car when their baby's in danger. Like, I think I had to be that way. Like, I was so in shock that like, I didn't, my nervous system was just like blank. And so I didn't feel anything. I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel sadness. I didn't feel like anything, because it was just in a state of shock. I think that I just couldn't comprehend everything that was going on. And so, we have a great night together. We don't, get intimate or anything, but, we laugh and we have a good time. And he tells me how much he loves me, and like, I'll always be the one who got away, all that stuff. Right. Um, and so then I move home. We don't really talk. He still has contact with my daughter. And then he starts asking me, he's like, when are you going to tell Brooke that we're not together anymore? And I was like, I don't really think that right. I was like, I don't know, like maybe after the holidays. And so he kind of like is pressuring me about it. And I'm like, he's seeing somebody else. Like, in my gut, I just knew that that's why he was asking. And so, what ended up happening was he stopped reaching out to my daughter. He stopped reaching out to me. And somebody told me that he started seeing somebody else, and whatever, like a month after we broke up. And so that, learning that information was worse than I think him cheating on me. Like, it hit me so hard, because that was like a form of abandonment. You know what I mean? And so, so these are all the lessons that I learned from this relationship, because honestly, like, I've gotten to a point where I no longer feel pain around this. I've actually forgiven him. We do not speak. But I have come to a place where I could say, I forgive you, and I hope that you and your new girlfriend are happy. And like, I have never said that to him, but like, for myself, that was something that I had to do, was like, I had to think about him being with this other woman, instead of like trying to push it away and like wish them well. And so the lessons that I learned from this relationship, I learned so much from this relationship, and I'm so grateful that I got to experience it, because as hard as it was with what happened at the end, and like, just learning about what actually happened, with the way he ended his marriage and all that stuff. And, it just made me feel really crummy. This relationship, I used to really struggle with feeling unlovable, the belief that I was unlovable. And I also, had the fear of rejection and abandonment. And through this relationship, like, this was my test relationship, because if I would have been like, it's prepared me for a lot. And so this taught me to really like what my intuition was truly saying. Like, now that like being in a really healed space and having this experience is so much different from being wounded and having a relationship like this. And so this helped me overcome the belief that I was unlovable, because I know that he did love me. Even though he made mistakes in our relationship, I know that he loved me. I know that we had a great relationship. And also experiencing him cheating on me and abandoning me in my relationship that way, the worst thing that could have happened happened. The worst thing that could have happened happened. Like our relationship was in the public eye. Like, you know, my daughter got hurt and I was so scared of hurting my daughter. I got hurt. I was betrayed. The worst thing that happened, that could have happened, happened. And guess what? I got through it. And I am no longer fearful of ever having that experience ever again. Because what I was scared for my daughter was that she would hate me forever and that it would ruin our relationship. She hated me for about 3 days. And after I told her, you know, that him and I split up, she hated me for about 3 days. And she was really upset that we had broken up, but, you know, but they were still in contact. And then he ghosted her, which was the most awful thing that he could have done. Like I could hit him with my fucking car for that. But my daughter handled it better than I thought would happen. And so, although it was very painful for her, it actually caused us to have a closer relationship that healed a lot of stuff from when she was younger. So I was not an emotionally available parent when she was young. And when her dad died, I was just like, you know, not there. And so this time around, when she really needs me and she's going through this really painful time, I'm actually there for her and I'm present and I'm taking care of her emotions. And, you know, our relationship is so deep now and it's better than it's ever been. She is happier now than she's ever been in her life. I tell her that all the time. I'm like, Brooke, I know that this was really painful, but I've never seen you happier. And she's like, I've never been happier. And so, you know, it's like, she's more resilient than I gave her credit for. And so I was so scared of her getting hurt. I think if my daughter wasn't involved, I would have ended the relationship a lot sooner. But I didn't give her enough credit. And then, so that ultimately became a blessing because now she's in a different school. She loves the school. She's made amazing friends. We're in a wonderful home that's 2 houses down from her best friend. So it's like, she's happy. And although that was a really painful, awful thing for her to experience, I know that it's part of her journey and part of her story. And I've been able to forgive myself for that. I've trusted my intuition more than ever before. And also what I learned was I completely like shut down my sexuality when him and I were together because we had very different sex styles, I guess. He was very self-conscious and intimidated by my history. And that really impacted our sex life. And that was really hard for me. And that was something that, you know, we would talk about, but it never really got better. And so I just kind of shut that part down about myself. And when we broke up, it was like I found that again. I found my sexuality. I found my sensuality. I found, you know, being back in touch with my body and pleasure and play and all of these things, because I didn't really feel desired. Like my needs were so met in every other way that I've never had them met before, that my sexual needs and like feeling desired weren't being met. But I didn't really get that at the time because all of like my other needs were so met that, you know, that was not. And so that showed me where I was suppressing myself. I also learned that I was scared of my anger and I didn't know how to access my anger in a healthy way. And after we split up, I was so angry once like the shock wore off that you know, what we do is we don't trust ourselves enough. Like if you've gone through your healing journey, like I was still thinking that I was scared of my anger because of the way that I have handled my anger in the past, like when I was before my healing journey, right? And so I was so scared of becoming that person again that I would stifle my anger out of fear of the way that I've expressed it in the past. And so many women, I mean, I work with so many women who have stifled their anger as well. And like, I had to go through this experience so that I could access my anger to also help my clients access theirs and transmute it. And so it taught me, you know, how to listen to my intuition further than ever before. It taught me how resilient me and my daughter really are. And it has healed so much of me and my daughter's relationship. It healed my wound of feeling unlovable, because I now had new evidence that I was lovable inside a romantic relationship, because I had never had that before. It helps me heal my fear of rejection, abandonment even further, because the worst thing possible happened. And today I'm happier than I've ever been. So I was so scared of being rejected and abandoned because of the way that I felt it in the past. And so we always think it's going to be the same as how it felt originally, but it's not. When you go through this healing journey and you experience something that you've experienced before, you know how to handle it in a different way. And so it's I honestly can say, like, I do not fear rejection and abandonment. The worst thing that could have happened to me did. And I remember after it happened, and I was like, this is going to be the best thing that's ever happened to me. And so that helped me heal rejection and abandonment in a way that I didn't know, you know, like I had to experience it and face it head on, and really face him being with another woman, because that was a wound from my daughter's father, him leaving me for another woman. Although I ended the relationship and he met another woman, the feelings were very similar. And so I had to face that head on, because in my past, I avoided it with drugs and alcohol and men. This time I faced it head on and I actually processed it. So I did years of healing in an instant. And that doesn't mean that, you know, it didn't take me. I mean, it took me months to heal from this, but ultimately, like, I don't miss this person. I don't wish we were still together. I'm not pining over them. Like, I know that I deserve so much better. And so this helped me also set the standard for what I want in my relationships, because now I know what it's like to be in a healthy relationship for the most part. But then I also see where I also needed to raise my standards as well. So there's that. The other lesson was, well, I did a psychedelic experience. I did Tepes Guite, after him and I broke up, and that helped me heal a lot of stuff. That's a psychedelic. And I do believe, you know, in the right circumstances and with the right medicine and with the right facilitator, those can be very, very helpful. And so it had me do that. And that was a really transformational experience to get in contact with the darker sides of myself, the sides of myself that were always rejected. And so through that, I've been able to go in deeper and look at the darker sides of myself. And instead of being scared of them or pushing them away, I've been able to get back in contact with them and actually love them and bring them to the light and integrate them. So that was a really transformational experience. And it's also allowed me to date. And I'm really excited because I'm having so much fun dating. And now I'm, you know, adding that into my coaching and all of that with online dating and dating in general. And, you know, all of these new experiences based on what I experienced. And so this relationship was the best relationship I've ever had. It ended painfully, but because I do have the emotional intelligence, and because I do have the knowledge that I have, I was able to alchemize this experience and turn it into my power. So now I can help more people. I have added so much more into my coaching since then with all the things that I've learned and healed through. It's made me more resilient. And ultimately, like, I'm in a better position than I've ever been. And I also believe that I had to go through my relationship ending and ending the way it did, having the career that I have, so that, you know, the universe, God could show me that I am capable of this work regardless of my relationship status. Because sometimes we get attached to what we get attached to, we lose. And so, you know, it's like my ego felt like I was qualified for what I did because I had the relationship. But the thing is, I was doing this work before him and I even started dating. And I've never been more successful in my work and in my career. And my clients have been getting miraculous results without me being in a relationship. And so that was really healing for me. I had to go through that ego death, and that was really transformational. Ultimately, like, I can honestly say I've never felt better. I've never felt happier. I've never felt more secure. I've never been more in touch with my body. I've never been more in touch with my feelings. I've never felt more in touch with my sexuality. And ultimately, it's like, this thing had to happen. And I'm okay with that. Did it suck when it happened? Yeah. But now do I feel like I can literally get through anything that's thrown my way? Yes. So, and also my court case, when I ended my relationship, ended up closing and I won again. So, um, so that's it. That's day 7. This was my test relationship. This is what I had to go through in order to get to this next level, in order to learn, grow, heal further. And I've come to a place of peace with everything that happened. I have forgiven him. I'm dating a really amazing guy. We've been seeing each other for a little over a month, taking things slow, but I'm also dating other people, and that's okay too. And I am learning myself, and I'm learning more about who I am and what I stand for, and the way that I relate to men. And it's just been very eye-opening, and it's been wonderful. And I know that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. My daughter's exactly where she's supposed to be. Like I said, she is happier than she's ever been before. So, and I also needed to know that. So before him and I started dating, I would only date guys from Florida because I really felt that I was supposed to be there. I really felt that I was supposed to live in Florida. So I dated like 3 guys from Florida. And I had to go there and learn that my daughter fucking hated it and it would never be happy there for me to understand that I had to be here. And so I had to understand that so that I would date people here because my person is here. And if I didn't go through that situation, I would have always been pining for moving to Florida and dating people from Florida when I'm supposed to be here. So experience, like, yes, I have all the credentials I need to have. I'm certified in a ton of different things. And I've been a coach for a long time. But my personal experiences are really what qualify me as a coach. They are the most transformative. It's more than I could have ever read in a book or done in a course or gotten in a certification. My personal experiences have helped over 200 women heal their relationship patterns and get into healthy, loving relationships and, experience
better and having better dating experiences. And so I can say, like, if that's the way that it had to go, okay, like, I surrender. So today's the final day, and tomorrow we'll do a shop with me at 1:30 p.m. EST. And again, let me know in the comments if you want me to do a 7-day series on what my toxic behaviors were in each of my past relationships with the nice guy.
All right. I hope this was helpful for you all. And enjoy. If you have to go back and watch the replays, these will be up and in the guide section. It'll be under the 7-day relationship series section, so you can always go back to these. All right, ladies. Bye.